Okay, so, well, now that we have a little bit of this validation stuff working for us, one of the things that I need to do is, well, there's an issue with my Vite config and stuff. There's issues with like using node functions or whatnot that you've probably been seeing, like this reference area error. So if I like just hard refresh, I get these issues. Buffer reference error, buffer is not defined. I've updated to SvelteKit 1.2 point something, so there's a couple other people on the Discord that are having issues when trying to use SvelteKit with Vite and polyfills and whatnot. So it's a little beyond me, to be honest. But as I continue to work on that, yeah, Zod, the Zod validation seems to be working okay, enough to kind of continue working with what I'm trying to do with this. And one area that's come up is I think it's time to work on getting my adding a filter when fetching. So I don't really need, when I hit a specific URL, a specific ledger, I don't really need to fetch all of the entries. I could, meaning like all entries ever created for the program, which would include like all these other ledgers with their entries, as well as like any of them that don't even belong to me. So like one major filter eventually I'll have to do is basically filtering based off of the user, based off of the authority wallet, right? So currently, I've experimented with using the server to fetch data, as well as from the client, and I'm still doing that. What I do know is that when I use from the client, I get to maintain all the types involved, versus doing it through a custom API. I have to retype it somehow, some way, and that I haven't fully fleshed out. But one of the main issues is when this particular fetch, I'm doing fetch from the server API or fetch with the client. Let me say up here. I think that's something I'm going to have to do eventually. And I can do that using my other dev wallet. But I think what I could do instead, or first at least, would be to address the issue with my individual route. So like whenever you hit an individual ledger, let's just make sure that we only get, we filter appropriately, accordingly. And currently with my setup, is it here? Yeah. I've got data coming from all over the place. If you look in my log, page svelte data object. I have all these different scenarios, layout load versus page load, some going through the API, some going through the client. So I'm overfetching like crazy, just kind of experimenting with it. But one thing that I need to do is add some filters for the entries, to where right now, to get a filtered table of entries, I'm using a reactive, and it's taking the data and it's getting my from the client with Anchor. I've got all my ledgers, and I'm filtering through all of those ledgers, and I'm matching on where the or I'm getting kind of the entries from there. I'm filtering where the entries account ledger pub key is equal to the current page params for this dynamic route. And it works. It works just fine. Thinking about adding a little bit of, or experimenting with the filters instead. And I think I'm going to just do it from the client, since everything is typed. But yeah, let's see, where's this one? So currently, I have this function right now where it's basically supposed to get just the ledger entries for this particular ledger, and I'm giving it a PDA, argument. It's really for the ledger pub key, essentially. But right now we're just returning them all. And so what you need to do is we need to create a filter. And what we're going to filter on is the ledger pub key. Very similarly, like what we did from the page, but this way we will get all of the entries specific to this ledger. So one of the things that these filters come from, and you'll saw here that the type of filters could be of type buffer, which with this polyfills issue I'm having, that may be kind of an issue. But what's great about using Anchor's program is that when you do these fetches, it returns all instances of this account type for the program, and it's usually, I believe it's all decoded already for you, so you don't have to do any crazy that simplifies the process. But what it does take as a filter is this getProgramAccounts filter array. So what I have learned and how I've done it could be something like, you first build up your filter. So you could be entries by ledger filter, and what this is, it's that get program accounts filter, and it's an array, and it's an array because it's using two kind of key it's a type get program account filter. It's a type. It's an array because it uses two possible filters you can do, which are mem comparison, so memory comparison, or data size. So in the sense that you can, yeah. So you have this memory comparison, and this gets into the bytes, and the other one is the data size. And well, what's cool about and then you have data size. What's cool about these filters is that let me get this back. You can so the data size is based off of, okay, we're going to fetch all these program accounts. When you just do like a fetch, there's a method called it's like a way to get program accounts. Maybe it's off of like connection. Get program accounts. Yeah, okay. So you can see fetch all the accounts owned by a specified program ID. Well, the problem, if you're just using, this is just straight from like Web3, Solana's Web3 library. So you can always just pass in some arguments like the program ID, and it will just return all the accounts. This is very bad. This is like just every single account. So all ledgers, all entries, everything that's ever involved with your program is just this one big fetch. This is bad to do that way, but you can reduce. There's ways of making this more efficient, and I would say the cookbook probably is your best bet with getProgramAccounts. This guide, yeah, probably it goes through a lot more in detail, but the data size filter, the optional filter property, I guess, that you can apply is really helpful, because rather than, it allows you to filter based off of the space, like the size involved, of the data size involved with the account. And my browser's being a little, there it is. Yeah, so the cookbook has a nice deep dive on it, where you can filters. It's an array. You can do mem comparison, match a series of bytes. I'll zoom in a little bit, maybe helpful. Yeah, so where you can match a series of bytes to account data. There's an offset property and a bytes property, so number of bytes into account data to begin comparing, and then data to match as base 58 there, and then data size, it's type number, compares the account data length with the provided data size. Yeah, there's a lot to this, and their guide would probably be a lot something worth looking at. But in my case, because we're using Anchor, and we are doing we're using the Anchor program that is built with our IDL that has like all the details around our program and the account structs. Program account entry, we've already specified quite a bit about the type of account. And so I don't believe with anchor, it's necessary to do something like the dataSize property. I could be wrong, but when you think about this dataSize, what it refers to is because this is the it's not actually an object. I'm sorry. Because this refers to the entry account. Well, we can look at the size of the account that we built in the state. So when we were defining the struct and all of these bytes, that we specified with the different fields and how much size in bytes these will take up, this is it. And so I believe if I go back to what I could do is like constants ledger entry size. Is that what I called it? Ledger prefix. Oh, no. Entry account space. Ledger account space. So entry account space is what I'm looking for. So entry account space. That would be the size of the accounts if we were just doing like a general getProgramAccounts call. But because we're doing this inside of Anchor, the program built up with our IDL, and we were specifying the entry account, it kind of already has some of those details. So I think it kind of helps with the filtering. But that's what it looks like. One of the things, though, is not assignable to. Hang on, I'm missing some stuff. The mem comparison. This is also it's kind of like it's a number, and it's the kind of like starting point. And what we're trying to do is I need the ledger pub key, I think is field, yeah. And it also has, I could say 8 for now. That's just arbitrary. And then there's the bytes involved. So like what sort of bytes, like string base 58, are we expecting? What are we trying to match as it goes through? And this would be the PDA. So let me show you. Thanks. Save that. Offset is incorrect. So back at my entry account struct, when we're defining it, we have these fields, right? Well, there's always the beginning part is always a 8 bytes for the discriminator. And again, the guide kind of goes through more details on that. But the position at which to begin comparing data is what the offset is. And the data that should match the accounts data. This is represented as a base 58 encoded string, should be limited to less than. So I am trying to hit not the ledger number, the ledger pub key. We're trying to get, it's not the entry number length. Okay, yeah. So this second field that I have is the ledger pub key. Here, my constant, I just call it ledger length, but it's length or size, essentially, of, of the data. Well, we start with the very first 8 bytes is the discriminator. The next 32 bytes represent the authority, and the following 32 it represents the actual ledger pub key. Okay, so what that means is back to here is the offset is 8 plus 32. So what is that? That's going to be the so if my data is starting at the position 40, it's 0 indexed, starting at memory position 0, and you go to plus 8. Let me see. So it should be, I think, position 39 is the offset. Let me see if I'm right. Yeah, so we have, so technically there's 40 bytes, but we start with 0 index. So starting at the first 40 bytes, well, maybe this is the starting point, so maybe it is starting at 40, because space from 0 to 39 will be the discriminator plus the authority pub key, and then we want to, this is supposed to be a string base 58 of the data to compare. So literally it's going into the accounts data field. Essentially it's going into the actual account data, and it's starting, you tell it where do you want to start comparing byte for, byte by byte, essentially, and it's going to start reading the data at position 40. It's going to go for 32 bytes because that's the size of a public key, and it's supposed to match the actual bytes that we provided here. So meaning in this case the PDA will be the page params that we've been using. So because here we have when we perform the load, we have this params argument, which gets us and allows us to do something like doing dynamic routing. So if I go back down here, then we have we have our filters built up, and we have, this is the dataSize. I don't needed when using Anchor program. I don't think we do, but either way, after we have that, then inside our actual fetch, you need to pass in the filters. So I think what we could do is simply pass in the entries by ledger filter. So, and then when we actually run it, it's still the same method, fetch ledger entries from client with anchor. It's still this one, and we need to pass in the actual param, or the PDA, the string, to compare. And that, I believe, is it. So again, this is only fetching, I've only applied this filter to my, this fetch from the client with anchor, even though I'm fetching entries from like a dozen different places right now. But if we go back to the app, let me kind of, yeah, the cookbook is, it's invaluable. There's so many great things in that cookbook. So definitely check that out if you try to do something like this. So right now, what I'm going to do for the sake of just testing this out, I'm going to go ahead and build like another ledger. We'll call this Peach. Do that. Thankfully, that's working out okay. Go ahead and, oh man, Solana RPC failed. Boy, oh boy, let me go back. That didn't, let's see. Let's try that again. Oh, invalid value map, expected map with a single key. Get program accounts. Oh, see, so this is performing invalid map. Failed to get accounts owned by program. Expected map with a single key. I may have not used this correctly. So oh, I think, hang on. I think I've got this, I think I made a mistake. I think that would work, but I actually think I need my data size. I think I need to separate these. So it is an array of filters. This right here is just one filter, and it's using the dataSize filter. Here is another filter using the memory comparison. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do 8 plus 32. Just kind of, it's the starting point. We have the discriminator, and then we take up, so I think that's a better way of, and now let's see if it complains. There's all kinds of stuff. I've really got to figure out the Vite with polyfill stuff. I think it's a common thing that's people are encountering. So, but yeah, now that we have, that seemed to be the issue with, well, let's see. Yeah, okay, cool. Hovering over, doing a kind of a pre-data fetch, data load. no errors this time. I click into it. Great. Now we're on this single ledger. Nothing happening. But check this out. So page load ledger entries from client with anchor. This was what I was just messing with. It's now an empty array, which is great because there are no entries on this one. If I go back and now I go to Bowser, who has an entry, I'll clear this out. We hit view, again, no errors. I click on that. And yeah, here, the table is using that original reactive, but let's check out my data, because this is all getting returned to that data prop. And if I open this up, page load ledger entries from client with anchor, and there's one, and it's got like the full typed entry IDL type all right here. And right now there's just one. So I think to showcase this would be, Bowser already has one. Let's do on Peach, let's add an entry. Initial 20 credit. See if this works. Yay, cool. Entry is successful. Let's do a debit. Let's minus, well, let's just do 5. We'll take away 5. Debit 5. Create another one. So far, so good. Great. And our table, I haven't updated how it's reacting, but if we go back to my main table, same kind of thing. If I click into, say, DDD, like any of these other ones, that page fetch should not return 3. That client fetch with anchor should not, that array should be 0. So if I look, yeah, there's nothing here, but if I go here, sure enough, yeah, page load ledger entries from client with anchor. Yeah, so this, that's how that works. And what's really cool about Anchor is that, again, the data that comes back from these fetches using the program, man, so much easier to work with because I have done in my escrow program, or no, in a previous program, it was like with voting, I ended up using just kind of the raw getProgramAccounts and kind of performing this, but then not only, okay, cool, you can filter your accounts, but if it's like your custom program accounts, it's not like a SPL token, like a very known type of account, it's one of your custom structs, then you have to go through the process of decoding. And man, I'm sure I'll encounter that or review that. But that was a lot of like aha moments for me originally when learning that. But this is great. Essentially, you just confirm that you have your filters configured correctly by doing something like this. Remember, you know, I think it looks like it can be a type buffer or this getProgramAccounts filter array. This is what I've used to using. And yeah, here it is. And so, you know, to expand on this, right now, this is one filter, but I could also look into adding an additional filter where it's filtering based off of, you know, it's like a join, you know, type of deal where it's like, okay, we have the matching ledger, but we also want, or at least it should be with the same authority, which may not be necessary to do that here, but certainly at the high level, like you easily could apply this to the main filters or ledgers call right here. Same kind of thing, fetch ledgers from client with anchor. Right now, as I mentioned, I could add this exact sort of thing where it doesn't, when I start experimenting with creating some with different wallets, then you have different authorities. So different authorities, it should show different ledgers, because you don't really want to see all ledgers unless there's some use case for that. But ultimately, you sign in with your wallet, and it will perform this fetch, but with a filter where these ledgers and their authority keys, line up with the public key of the connected wallet. So yeah, we'll certainly do that. But hopefully this was helpful and wasn't too painful.